Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope your journey to becoming a balanced dom is going well. I hope your summer is going well. I hope things are awesome. And I hope that you're not facing any obstacles as you strive to shift from burnout to balance and to move from a life of unfulfillment to a life of productivity, fulfillment, and purposefulness. Today, I'm excited because I have Justine Wenzel to come here to share her story of being a warrior, how she was able to overcome certain traumatic experiences that she went through and how that has transformed her life and influenced the life that she's living today. But before we go on, have you subscribed yet? If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button because that's how you're going to get notifications every week when we upload new episodes. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Empowered for Balance, all one word, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest. I do a lot of Pinterest, so check it out also. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Justine. Hi, Justine. How are you?
Hey, friend. I'm great. How are you?
I'm excited and I'm fine also. What's going on? How is it going on your end? How is your summer going?
It's going good. We are just gearing up for a busy summer. I don't think that we have any lack of busyness going on, and I think people just really wanting to enjoy and get out and be together. Just after such a long season. So,
Yeah,
yeah, we've got some
yeah.
trips planned and some fun things to just spend time with family and really enjoy it.
Awesome, awesome. So introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a newly 32 years young entrepreneur. I have been building a business today for 14 years. It's actually my 14-year work anniversary being a
Wow.
boss babe work from home. Little did I know 14 years ago, I was just shy of 18 years old or just turning 18 years old and was starting a business that I had kind of grown up in, and kind of the long story short on that was my mom is a top producer in a direct sales company, has been for over 20 years. I was 7 years old when she started that business. So I watched my mom go from being in previous years a single mom to working in a corporate environment to being home with us to my dad traveling 5 to 6 days a week, and my mom almost essentially being a single mom through the week even after she had met my dad, uh, because it was very much like hands on. She had us for those 5 to 6 days a week before my dad got back on the weekends. And that was a really long season where a lot of people would think, how do you do it all? She was at every event, she was working for herself. I learned so much in that period when I look back now at just watching my mom and what she walked out for me, the confidence that she had to walk something out like that and to get onto the other side of it and become a different type of woman that would be very influential for me. That was huge. And, I get a lot of questions all the time about where people, and I know we're going to kind of get into this later, but, where do you get confidence from? And I truly believe that you don't get confidence just like you're not just born with this incredible sense of confidence. But I think confidence really comes from watching someone in your life walk it out first, and that you're kind of picking up more is caught than is really taught. So I feel like when a woman can empower herself and empower others in turn through that level of confidence and growth and healing and confidence in the Lord and knowing who she is, and who God is, I feel like that says a lot about what she can give. You can't give what you don't have. And
Yeah.
so I saw that from a very young age. I would not say that I was a super confident young woman, but when I was 18 years old, I was confident enough to say, I don't know what I'm doing. My face is broken out. My bank account is broke. You don't want to be two types of broke. I always joke with that. And, I knew that there was an opportunity and I had seen somebody walk that out for me. And so I started a journey of building a business. I was in corporate America for a short time and I basically decided, why am I going to go work for somebody else and help someone else create the lifestyle that I could be creating for myself when I could work as much as I wanted to, I could reach my goals and the time frame I wanted to, and I could really align it with my personal values. So 14 years is a long time to build something. And so one of my biggest things I tell people is like, don't quit, whatever
Yeah,
it is. Like you're not going to get there any faster by quitting to
yeah,
where you want to be with anything. And so
yeah.
I really attribute the success that I've had in my business up until this point, and then deciding to launch a podcast with a culmination of never quitting and really just following, like, unless God tells me to leave and do something different, I'm staying on board. I'm staying on mission. There's a reason and a
Yeah.
season why I need to be here learning what I'm learning right now. And
Yes.
through life circumstances, I went to college, I got a degree. Like I said, I was in corporate America. For a short time, I was doing internships and all these different experiences. And I decided to leave that setting because it really did not align with my values. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, there were a lot of integrity things that I saw in my path in a short period of time that I said, this is not what I want for my life. If I want to be able to build something, I have to start somewhere. I have to just
Yeah.
get started. And so I
Yeah.
really that was probably one of the first times in my life where um, I decided to be courageous without even really realizing at the moment how courageous that was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
since then, I've gotten married. I'm a dog mom. We own a home and some rental properties. And so we're working on, different streams of income. I started my podcast last year, and, that was really on the heels of a very traumatic event in my life, which I know we'll be sharing a little bit more about. But my whole passion in sharing my story is to give people not only hope, but to give people tangible tools to navigate through and grow through what you go through.
Yeah.
Because none of us are exempt from hard situations, trauma,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. None of us are exempt. But at the end of the day, do you want to live in more of a victim mentality and a fixed mindset of I'm staying here? Or do you want to grow out of that? Because nobody's standing in the way of you and your goals most of the time, other than you yourself. So, helping people break through, helping people be courageous in the moment to do things and say things that you will thank your future self, your future self is thanking you for.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And you use the word courage. I think that you are very courageous. Also, even being able to share your story as it is out there, overcoming, because, people will feel like, oh, they're going to stigmatize me, or they're going to think I'm like that, or they're going to, call me names, but you don't care because you know what you're doing and you know it's your mission, you know what your purpose is, and you're happy to share that story. So I love everything about what you do, honestly.
Thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate that.
all right. So let's get into it, okay? After 20 years of pushing down trauma, okay, what was the breaking point and where did where did you start that healing process? And again, if you want to share that story whilst you try to talk about this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I think one of the important things to remember is, when you've gone through um, traumatic situations and our job, and I get really interested into like how the brain works. And through this whole experience, not only did I go through a tremendous healing process that I attribute um, through a lot of different avenues, but I have to be very clear in saying that true healing is possible. But I think that what people don't realize is true healing is possible because God makes it possible.
Yeah.
You are not enough to heal yourself. I actually on my podcast, Courage Queen, I just recently did an episode on this because I think there's a lot of confusion in this world we live in today where people think like um I'm enough to heal myself. Like I can
Mm,
just listen to my body and I can look within myself and I can harness this level of strength. And I'm not saying that there's not some truth to that, but I think we really need to give credit where credit is due. Through my entire healing process, the only way that I was able to heal was from harnessing and surrendering my plans of how I was going to heal and how I was going to get through the situation to God.
yeah.
And it was because of that, it was because of the tools and the tangible tips and the insight and wisdom that I feel like he opened up and gave me access to during that time where I was ready to listen.
Yeah.
It was during a global pandemic. And so,
Yeah.
I want to be very transparent and very authentic of a person to admit to the fact that I absolutely love my job and being an entrepreneur, but I definitely had been in a season where I was used to um, a very toxic level of being a workaholic. And I think that the difference is you can be a workaholic and be very stressed out, but you can also be a workaholic and be absolutely loving your life. And
Yeah.
honestly, at the time, I did love my life. But there was something that was very clear to me that was missing. And it honestly took a global pandemic to shake things up. God's timing is perfect. And I look back now and see the breadcrumbs of how my entire situation rolled out in my healing process. And I realize that the time that I was supposed to come forward with this information, the time of my healing, it was all purposely in God's exact timing that He wanted it to be. And there was a reason for that because I wouldn't have slowed down on my own unless I had to.
Yeah.
And when you push down trauma like that for year after year after year, you get so used to operating in a way that is very unhealthy in many different areas of your life because I was operating in this chronic busyness because anytime that I would be quiet or relaxed or wasn't busy filling my life with all of these things, I would be in my head rehearsing the same nightmare that I was really living, that I was trying to just be like, oh no, don't look behind this curtain. No, oh no, don't look through that. Oh, close the closet door. It was like I had all this stuff and people would come to my house and I didn't want people to come in because, you open up that drawer, you open up that closet door and everything comes tumbling out. And I was afraid that if somebody picked hard enough or if somebody went to investigate that door that everything would just come out. And so I kept that really tight-lipped. I really lived a life that people would have thought there's no way that she would have been unhappy.
Yeah.
And you know, January of 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I was at a family member's house and I went up to use the restroom and I came out of the restroom and all of a sudden I felt so sick to my stomach. I can't even explain it. Um, I felt so sick to my stomach. I started actually having a panic attack while I was at my family member's house. And all of a sudden, all of this stuff started coming up. And the way that I explain it to people is it's like when you have to throw up and you can kind of feel it in your chest, like that tightness, like it's coming, you're not going to stop it. But you also kind of have this feeling in the back of your mind, like even though you're fearful, you're going to feel better when it's out.
Yeah.
And I kind of had gotten to that point where I had pushed it down for so long. I came out of the bathroom. I started having a panic attack. It's almost like my body took over because your body keeps score. And if you haven't read that book, that's a great book about how our body carries and holds on to trauma. And I had a whole bunch of health issues, like gut issues my entire life,
Yeah.
allergies to metals, like all these major issues. They thought I had an autoimmune disorder, all these things. And I was seeing homeopathic doctors and I had done all this work. And the interesting thing about that was I had completely healed my gut and all these different things a couple of years prior through a doctor that I swear was a gift from God, and an answer to a prayer in my life. And so again, it's like he was able to heal my body because he knew that that was going to be necessary in order for me to go through the next phase, which was like purging and just getting everything out.
Mm.
And when I had a panic attack that day, all of the memories of all I had pushed down, the fact that I was sexually abused by someone in my family for over 2 years, it all started coming up. And I really only had about one vivid memory of what had happened to me, but it had scarred me and constantly been in my brain for 20 years. And when you go through something like that and you're 7 years old, which I want to again kind of draw the conclusion or the connection between my mom was 7 years old when she started the business that now her and I work together. So it's interesting to me that the same year my mom started her business was the same year I had just started on a journey of 2 years of where I would be abused. And going through that experience and realizing it all has to come out.
Yeah.
What would people think? Would it tear up my family? Would it change my entire family dynamic? There were all fears that I had, but at the same time, I knew that I couldn't hold it in anymore. I wasn't willing to
Yeah.
sacrifice my own happiness, my own mental health, the anxiety that I felt, the panic attacks I had been experiencing for years, all these different things. And I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to be in silence.
Yeah.
And I thought about the fact that I don't even have kids yet. And I'm like, what would my kids think if I were to put them in that level of danger and be around family members that I didn't, I knew what had happened to me, and how could I sit there and have my nieces and maybe my future kids be in that same situation and sit there and do nothing? And it
Yeah.
really turned to me to a level of responsibility that I had to be the strong woman that I always admired in my life. And so that was when I officially broke the silence. It was January of 2020. Little did I know, as I was going to take a break from family and really work on my healing process, I started, going to therapy 6 months prior to that. And even that was a very interesting situation because I didn't go to therapy because of the trauma. I actually was
Yeah.
so in denial. I thought my life was great. I went to therapy 6 months prior because I thought, oh, I should probably just be proactive. Like therapy was kind of becoming like a popular thing. And I'm
Yeah. The
like, maybe I
thing.
should be
Yeah.
going to therapy. Maybe I should be like being proactive. And like, I show up at therapy and she's like, why are you here? I'm like, well, I'm just trying to like be a healthier person. And she was kind of like, nobody comes here for that. Like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And little did she know, and little did I know what God would continue to evolve because I had to build trust with my therapist. I had to get some of those beginning things out of the way. And one of the first questions that my therapist had asked me was, why do you have so much fear? And what
Mm.
she found, and what might be this message to the listeners, is if you feel like you just are constantly living in a state of fear, which I was afraid of everything. And I had this deep seated fear that would almost like make me come to tears just instantly. But when they ask you, and a lot of times when you are a survivor of sexual abuse or any type of abuse, a lot of times when you're asking them, why are you so fearful? They don't have an answer. And
Yeah.
so I didn't have an answer. I just said to her, I don't know. I don't know why I'm so fearful, but I am. And it was at that point that she knew that something was deeper. And at that point, it was just God's plan as to roll it out and to like start to peel back the onion to expose
Exactly.
different parts of myself
Yeah.
in order to heal. And so that put me on about, an 8 to 9 month, almost a year journey of going to therapy, working on my own and in more so isolation rather than worrying about having FOMO and missing out on everything. And again, it's so funny how God works because we were going through the pandemic. So we were on lockdown. Like
Yeah.
there was nothing else going on. There was no amount of busyness that I really could have done at that time, no social events. I appreciate the fact that God cares for us so much that he knows far better what's best for us than we know for ourselves. And he ushered me through that 8 to 9 months and up to a year of celebrating, breaking the silence for myself. And the amount of empowerment and confidence that translated within myself and that now I feel like I can share with other people. I'm amazed that, when you go through these hard things, I think everybody has a story and everybody's really anxious to share their story. But I was very careful for a long time to not share my story publicly until it had been about a year or
Yeah.
more, that I was on the other side because I didn't feel like it was right to share a story where I was still in a place of really suffering and struggling to get to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that I'm there, I don't think there's a lot of people that feel called to share a story like this publicly and give glory back to God and not care about criticism and go through those hard seasons and those hard comments and the criticism of that. But I feel like God has called me to that. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to make that mistake again of staying silent when someone needs to hear my voice in order to unlock their own voice and their own
Mm.
confidence to break through.
Yes. You know, your journey is a typical example of what I always talk about on on this podcast and on this YouTube channel, because we women today have the facade, everything seems perfect. Our makeup is done, eyelashes laid, edges laid.
Yeah.
We have the nice cars, the beautiful career, the perfect family. Everything looks perfect on the outside. But a lot of times we have things inside of us that are eating us up. So we may look like we have it all together on the outside, but deep inside of us, we have trauma that we're not dealing with. So your story is, I'm even so emotional now, honestly, because it's a story of courage to face that thing that we are afraid to face, and to deal with that trauma that we have. Because when we don't bottle up those emotions and that trauma, and we're able to face it, it opens us up to a world of possibilities. Like you faced it, it finally came out, you've done your healing journey, and now you're here encouraging people. And that is the benefit of dealing with that trauma, that thing inside of us that is eating us up. So your story is just amazing, honestly. And I think that whatever mission that God has for you, or whatever God is going to use this story for, is really going to benefit a lot of women out there in the world. So you're doing amazing, honestly.
Well, thank you, sweet friend. I appreciate that. Just taking it day by day and what he tells me
Yes.
to do and trying to be obedient in and through that.
Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. So I just want us to talk about the benefits. How has facing this fear and facing this trauma and doing the work, because you did the work, you went in for 1 year, you've done the work, you've dealt with it, because it's one thing coming out and another thing coming out and doing the work. That's two different
Right.
situations. But you came out and then you did the work. So how has, dealing with this trauma and coming to the other side of it impacted your life, your career, even your quality of life, your mental health, everything about you? What has changed?
Gosh, so much. When in the Bible, when God is in positions where he gives someone a new name, that really spoke to me during this time. And he says, basically, I take your old name, because in biblical times, their name really was, um, definitive of what their life story would be, or, grabbing the heel. And, there's all these different examples in the Bible of like why names are so important. And
Yeah.
my name actually means justice, which I think is so interesting. I started kind of digging into that as I was coming to the other side of this, because I felt like, although I don't have a specific new name, I felt like with the name of my podcast, as this was coming to be, I felt like God was really speaking to me, that he wanted me to show women what it was like to be 100% authentic and real, and that everything is filtered through God's truth. Because
Yeah.
we're in a time in our world right now where there's a lot of confusion, and I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of that, because we all know that we've had, from political to COVID to all these different
Mm-hmm.
topics, there's so much division. And it's really unfortunate, because when you look at God's word, all of this chaos and destruction was always going on. But God was always very specific about what biblical truth there was through it and through the situation and what we could learn from it. And the ways that I feel like he changed my name, essentially from Justine to Justine the Courage Queen, which was how kind of what birthed my podcast, was this ability to share real and authentic stories, taboo topics of things that people are not discussing that need to be discussed, because people are only hearing one side of the story. There's a
Yeah.
lot of confusion. People aren't doing their own research. I mean, there's just a wide variety of different opinions and stories and truths out there. And I kind of bring that, more to a biblical truth point, because a lot of people think, oh, I can get complete healing from crystals. I can get complete healing from essential oils. I can get,
Yes.
and I'm probably going to step on some toes right now, but I'm just going to tell you, like, crystals, yoga, all these different things. Do I, you know, I will definitely say yoga was a huge benefit to me during this time. And, a lot of things were deciding to eat healthier. Um, my mental health in general, because I wasn't living and walking in that anxiety anymore. my, gut health improved, my skin improved. There were so many just improvements in general. I realized how many times fear had stood in my way. And I think that the fear doesn't go away. And that's kind of what I want the audience to know too, is like the fear doesn't go away. You just start silencing how much power it has over you. So you
Yes.
choose courage over fear. And my life just in so many ways, I started purging different relationships, which doesn't sound like it would be a benefit in some way, but I
Hmm.
realized there were relationships in my life that needed to go. There was
Yeah.
some purging that needed to happen. I had to donate some things, like when you're donating and getting rid of, some clothes, some things that are not serving me. There were
Hmm.
mental things and limiting beliefs that I had told myself for years that I had to deconstruct and figure out, why did I believe those things? And God gave me incredible insight, an incredible frequency of hearing his voice and his call on my life more than I've ever experienced before. And I started to notice those connections. I started to notice that my business had more fruit to it, that my
Yeah.
relationships and my intentions in my business felt like they had more passion, more joy, and that if I slowed down to speed up, which for me, slowing down to speed up means that rather than obsessively being busy in my work, I take a step back. I figure out, how do I have more peace in my life? How do I have more quiet time with the Lord so that I can get more of a game plan and an inner confidence to hearing what he's trying to tell me and
Yeah.
who I'm supposed to be talking to, who I'm supposed to be doing business with. And it's constantly trying to turn down the noise
Yeah.
because there's so much more noise and mental clutter. And he's just completely made me what I feel to be is a new person. He's given me new hope, not only in my life and what I can do in my life and in my future, but so much of that fear and anxiety of trying to control those situations and the outcome that I spent years and years trying to, just like this tight little controlled ball. I've just now been able to release that into this more of an open hand receiving practice, and be more open to the blessings that he's been trying to give me all along that I was standing in the way of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's really been, again, it's been a journey. I'm continuing to grow through that. But again, like going back to the storytelling, I had to really be careful and respect the fact that God had brought me through the other side, but I wanted to honor the way in which I told my story. I wanted to
Yeah.
point people back to him, and I wanted to make sure that I was at a place of healing so that I wasn't damaging and tampering with having these conversations with people who maybe weren't there,
Yeah.
and, messing up their journey and their progress of what their next step is. And I feel like now God's put me in this place where I can help usher people through to the other side by showing them what is possible.
Yes, yes, I love that. And I love the fact that you mentioned slowing down to speed up, because sometimes we're so busy as women, and this podcast is busy for busy women of faith. So
Yeah,
we are so busy getting ourselves busy, we don't realize that sometimes we just need to slow down and look within us,
right.
practice that self-care, meditate on the word of God, do that mindfulness, because sometimes there might be things in there that we are ignoring,
Yeah,
that may be affecting our day-to-day life. So slowing down to speed up and slowing down to heal and to do whatever you need to do to get you that amount of speed you need to achieve your goals and to even live out that purpose or that calling that you feel God has for you is very, very important. Going just leads us to burnout, unfulfillment,
yeah,
confusion, mental clutter, headaches, physical health issues. And sometimes you don't realize that it's all connected to just one thing, the fact that we are just too busy and we're just too stressed out and we're always in fight and flight mode.
yes, of
So it's
course.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I know you are the courage queen, Justine the courage queen. Tell us, what is courage? What
Mm.
what do you think courage is, and how do you think courage helps us face fear and let go of fear and reduce the amount of power fear has on us?
So, courage to me is any time, and it's a moment in time where you decide to take a step forward when you could just as easily, or in a more comfortable place, stay still or take a step back. And what does that look like in our lives today? It looks like standing up for yourself, standing up for someone else, saying something when it's maybe easier or more comfortable to not say anything. And
Yeah.
of course, I mean a lot of this in terms of like, when people say like, oh, I want to stand forward and use my voice for something good. But I think there's a difference between doing that in an abrasive way with an intention to hurt someone or an intention to make yourself seem at a higher place than somebody
Yeah.
else. And I
Yeah.
think that what I'm talking about is everything that you're doing when whether you're quote unquote speaking your truth, which is a very hot topic right now, whether you're speaking
Mm-hmm.
your truth, whether you're sticking up for someone or a situation, or you're choosing to say something when it's easier maybe to not say anything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
all of that is filtered through God's hand and filtered through love. It has an
Yeah.
intention of love to better a situation and to bring justice to a situation. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I look at, how courage has played in my life, there were so many, moments where you have to dare to risk public criticism. And
Yeah.
that's really the way that I see it is you are willing to not only talk about something, but you will walk the walk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You are going to put yourself in situations where you may be criticized, you may be condemned,
Mm-hmm.
you may be insecure,
Yeah.
you may not feel like super strong and empowered in the moment, but you know that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be popular, unfortunately. Like courage is not popular. It's
Yeah.
what the few or the smaller amount of people are doing at this point.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, like anything else, there's a lot of things that are trending. I think being courageous and standing up for what you believe in, but doing it in a way where it's honoring God is
Yeah.
one of the most courageous things that we as Christians can do right now, as Christ followers, as sisters in Christ. We need to band together and start standing up for what's right and
Yeah.
daring to risk public criticism. And that's why I created this platform to say the fear doesn't go away. You
Mm-hmm.
simply start to get stronger and you silence out how much that messes with, keeping you from doing what God's calling you to do. And, God says like I am your help, I am your present help in
In
trouble and in those
trouble. Yeah.
situations. And
Yeah.
when you show up and when you arrive, like we can't expect God to just bless us when we're not willing to step forward. But God says when we step forward and when we are willing to be that vessel for his word and to be obedient to him, he's going to show up in those moments. He's going to give you the grace. He's going to protect you in those tried and true moments of you standing up for something that is aligned with his word.
Yeah.
And again, when I thought about it long and hard of how does courage really play in my life, it's that I constantly am having to build that courage muscle. You have to start
Yes.
out doing it in small ways, and that muscle, like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things, gets stronger and stronger the more that you use it. And guess what? I think courage is in direct correlation with building someone's confidence. I
Yes.
think that if
Yes.
you can build the courage muscle, your confidence will continue to grow each
Yeah.
time that you do that.
Yeah.
And we're in a crisis, let's be real. We're in a crisis of confidence in women today. We're being told that that men have to be, men are turning into more feminine versions of themselves. Like there's all these different categories and all these different things happening and you know a lot of people that want to push this idea of feminism forward, but it's still at the end of the day, it's the exact same thing because they're pushing women to still be now higher than where men are. It's like, why can't we just come together and say, women are strong and capable of doing everything that God has given them to do. They have very unique talents and gifts. Men are the same way. Why can't we be this equal footing to realize we need each other? God created us
Mm.
to be partners and to be workers together.
Yeah.
And, again, there's a lot of wonky stuff going on right now. And I think that that is also a way that, again, sometimes you're going to step on people's toes because we live in this society now where, like, oh, whatever works for you, whatever's good for you, like you live your truth, you speak your truth, like, oh, whatever you identify with and what's authentic to you. But I want to just caution people with, always agreeing to all those things when they're not how God specifically designed. And if that's the truth, and if
Yeah.
that's the calling, and that's the, let's say, the foundation that you want to build a life on, you really got to be careful that you're not getting swept into that. You have to be really
Yeah.
secure in who you are and who God is, so that you don't
Yeah.
get caught up in all that.
Yes, yes, yes. And I like what you mentioned. It's not just about being brave, but it's about making sure that you're doing it to please God. So the motive is important, and making
Yeah.
sure that you're not going out of what the Bible says, right? Going out of biblical principles. So it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. And I like the fact that you mentioned that courage is in correlation with confidence, because if you're courageous and you're it's built on God, your confidence is going to grow also,
Yeah.
because then you're dependent on God for everything. You're not dependent on yourself. So your
Right.
courage is in God, and your confidence is built in God. So that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm really enjoying this conversation, honestly. I wish we could go on
Me
and on and
too.
on, because
Yeah.
this is a very passionate, honest, courageous conversation. But we will have to end here. But one thing I want us to talk about is, there's so many women out there, probably they've been through what you've been through, or they're facing their own form of trauma that they're afraid to face. So what will be your words for that woman out there who's scared? She knows there's something in there. She knows she wakes up every morning and everything looks perfect on the outside, but deep inside of her, she's really dying. And she
Yeah.
really needs to confront that thing, but she's scared. So what would you tell that woman? What are your words for that
Mm.
woman?
Yeah. Well, first thing is I would say is you got to take it to God.
Yeah.
God says that, it says in his word, take delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I think I always had this inkling that something had happened, but again, I really wasn't at a place where I think I honestly thought for a long time, like, oh, it's fine. It'll just go away. Like I can just like, I can figure this out. Like I don't need to tell anyone. It can just be like, this, I didn't really see it as a secret, but I didn't really see it as something
Mm-hmm.
that I had to be like sharing with everyone, because I didn't understand how much it had already at that point impacted my life.
Yeah.
And coming out on the other side of that, I wish that I would have done something sooner. But again, I want to go back to God's timing is perfect. I don't think anything happens by accident. So if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, your heart is beating a little bit faster and you're like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, it's triggering something in you. And I think
Yes.
that sometimes you can be triggered in a bad way, where you want to react aggressively or out of anger or out of hurt in all these situations. But I also feel like God convicts in a loving way to say, like, it's time.
Mm.
You're here for a moment such as this, and maybe you're hearing this and God's kind of speaking to you, or maybe you don't even have that tight of a relationship, but you're feeling something. Something is moving. There's something fluid that you're feeling. If it's causing you to
Yeah.
feel emotional, I would say take it to God and just say, Lord, I want help in surrendering this. This is a really hard thing. I don't feel ready. I don't feel capable. I don't feel
Yeah.
equipped. I'm scared. Just be honest with God. Like you were talking to your best friend or your mom, or whoever that is in your life that you have that trust with, but know that God is there and he's a present help to you. And
Yes.
when you can just be honest with God and just say, God, I'm struggling. Nobody knows I'm living this perfect life and nobody knows what's going on inside. I am like, it's like a tug of war back and forth in this place where I'm really hurting. Would you help, would you help me to release those, closed fists and the amount of control over keeping my life safe and comfortable? And would you help
Yeah.
me to open the door just a little bit to let a little bit more of your light in and to know who to trust with this information? And for me, um, I had to go to, I I think everybody should go to therapy. Personally, I'm a huge advocate for therapy, because a lot of the times when you feel like your life is perfect, just like I did, God kind of brought me through the back door of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he made me think, and like this is how comical God is. He made me think that I was just going to like better my life. Like he had it packaged in a
Yes.
cute little bow, like, oh yeah, you're a proactive person. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like in my brain, yeah, I'm gonna go and better my life and just, you know, and find ways to stay healthy and be growing, because all these other people in the world, they have problems, but I'm good. My life is fine. And you'll convince yourself of a lot of things. You'll keep yourself in this little cage of protection,
Yeah.
but God's calling you out. And you have to be willing to start somewhere. So maybe it's just praying to God and saying, Lord, show me what my next step is.
Yes.
Maybe it's reaching out to a therapist. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend and saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a Christian therapist, or I'm looking for somebody to go talk to about some things."
Mm-hmm.
Who do you recommend? Do you have any
Yeah.
referrals of somebody that you love? And you would be shocked to know that when you open up and just show a little bit of that vulnerability to people that you trust, you'll be amazed at what God will do,
Yeah.
because God will bring people out of the woodwork to help establish his plans that he knew long before you were born, of exactly how he was going to send you on this little breadcrumb trail, so that you could be the type of person that you love, the type of person that he's called you to be, that he created you to
Mm-hmm.
be. And it all just, it seems very overwhelming, but it's just praying to him to say, what is my next best step?
I love that.
And then once you've
Yes.
done that, then you pray again. Okay, Lord, I went to therapy. What is my next best step? Help
Yeah.
reveal and show me the people that you've placed in my life for a reason, to help me work
Mm-hmm.
through this. And you don't have to put a time frame on it. And that's one of the things that I also, when I was going through my healing, I'm like, however long it takes,
Yeah.
it's going
Yeah.
to be hard every single day, but however long it takes, because I didn't want to put all that out there and then continue to just live in chains.
Yes.
So I had to
Yes.
surrender all of that to God and just say, would you fill the gaps so that, I can have more freedom and more peace in my life? I want to be
Yeah.
obedient to you. I want to do your calling, but it's selfish of me to think that I can do it self sufficiently on my own.
Yes, yes. I love every bit of everything you're talking about. Do the next best thing. Take baby steps. Do it one at a time. You cannot, sometimes you think, oh, it's going to be one day, I'm going to go and it's going to be perfect, magic wand. No, it doesn't work that way. It's
Yeah.
a process, but just start it. Have the courage to just start it. Take those baby steps and reach out for help. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. Reach out to somebody you can trust. Talk to the person. If they can't even help you, I'm sure they're going to guide you to go to where you need to go to get the support that you need
Mhm.
with whatever you're dealing with. This is amazing, Justine. I love everything about what we've spoken about today. Where can we find you?
Sure. Well, thank you so much. First off, I want to just thank you personally, Amma, for this opportunity and this amazing platform that you've created, that is such a for um, vehicle for God's change that I feel like he wants to see in this world, leaded by love
Yeah.
and leaded by women that want to stand up, women that
Yes.
want to share his truth loud and proud. And I really appreciate that. And I value the person that you are, and how passionate you are about creating that space for women to be able to do that, and the tools and all the different things that come alongside that. So you can find me on mostly on Instagram. My podcast is called Courage Queen. You can look it up Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you listen. I hope that you will
Mm-hmm.
come listen, and it'll be like we're just sitting on my couch having a girlfriend chat. And I do weekly episodes, so I have people come in and interview every other week, and I do solo episodes in
Mm-hmm.
between my interviews.
Yeah.
So that is on Apple Podcasts and all of that. But you can also find us on social media at Courage Queen Pod, POD, so short for podcast. And then my
Mm-hmm.
personal page is J Wenzel, JWENZEL 29. And
Awesome.
if you haven't caught that already, I'm like your go to makeup guru. And so I'm doing a whole bunch of fun videos and bringing the comedy and all that to my page. So just wanting to spread joy and light in every opportunity that God gives me.
Nice, nice. And I'm going to put those links in the show notes so anybody
Perfect.
can reach out to you if they have any questions. But, on that note, I want to say thank you so much for coming, Justine. This is an amazing, courageous thing you've done. And I really appreciate you coming to share your story with my audience.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity again. And I can't wait to connect more and see the incredible things that God has in store for you as well.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for sticking with us till the end. I must say that I'm so emotional, honestly, but I'm so blessed by everything Justine shared with us. But my take home for today's episode is that God is calling you out. Yes, you who is watching or who is listening, that thing that has been eating you up, that you've bottled up, that you're so scared to confront, God is calling you out. You know, that thing, that trauma, that life experience that you think has defined your life, and because of that you cannot move forward with what you want to do or where you feel God is calling you to. Today God is calling you out. You just need to do the next best thing. You know, you just need to reach out for help, reach out for support, reach out to somebody that you think you can trust, who will help guide you to the support and everything that you need to heal. Don't stay alone, and don't put on that facade and act like everything is perfect when in reality, things are not perfect, all right? And on that note, if you feel like, Alma, today this has touched me, I think I really need support, I need somebody to talk to, don't be afraid to reach out to me. Book a free strategy session with me by going to www.empoweredforbalance.com/free session. And in that session, we're just going to have a chat about what's going on, what your challenges are, and what you need support with. And if it's something that is not in my jurisdiction of what I do as a coach, I'm definitely happy to point you to the right direction of where you can go to get the help and support that you need. All right. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button, because that's how you're going to get notifications every week when we upload new episodes. And again, I want to say thank you for sticking with us. We hope to talk to you next week. Take care of yourself and have a lovely weekend. Take care.